Okay, we are live. So excited. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Methods for Modern Finance. I'm really excited to again this week have the SBA back. And this week we're talking about the different certifications that you can get for your business, depending on what kind of business you have, things like that. So it's something that as an SBDC director here, I always talk to my businesses about. Down here in this area, we have a lot of women-owned business. We have a lot of 8A certification businesses and things like that. And so I'm really excited to bring Cody and the team from the SBA down, or on, it's not really down, we're virtual, to talk about that. Before we get started, I just want to give a special thanks to the U.S. and Small Business Administration for the funding. We do have a cooperative agreement with the SBA for the funding of this center, along with Utah State University. We appreciate that backing and being able to deliver the resources that we do to our Four Corners region. So we appreciate that. I'm going to turn the time over to Cody and have him get us started. And I'm going to make him host so that he can share his screen, and go ahead and turn the time over to Cody so we can get started.
All right. Thank you so much, Megan, for having us. We really appreciate it. My name is Cody Neville. I am the 8A Business Development Program Manager. They also call me the Business Opportunity Specialist. What that means is just that I'm in charge of the program and helping the 8As as far as finding contract opportunities. We help them with training. We help them with general business advice. And then I also handle all their compliance work that we do every single year. So we review the business on an annual basis and make sure that they're meeting all the requirements to stay in the program that we're going to discuss with you today. So that is me. Also with us on the call right now, we have Rachel Bennett. She is from our office, and later on you're going to hear from Melinda Workman, but I will let Rachel introduce herself.
Hopefully you can hear me. Can you hear me, Cody? Oh, yes? Okay, good. Yeah. I have issues with my computer. So if I break off, I apologize. If my face freezes in the middle, hopefully it's funny and you can laugh at it. But I will probably get back on shortly if I'm kicked off. Like Cody said, my name's Rachel Bennett. I'm an economic development specialist in our office. I oversee the HUBZone program, and I'm the liaison between the Utah District Office and headquarters. I also am the minority business liaison. I work with the Utah Hispanic Chamber, Black Chamber of Commerce, LGBTQ Chamber, the Pacific Island Group under PICTAR, their business alliance, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. All right, so we will go ahead and just get right into the presentation. I'm going to try and share my screen. So here we go. All right, can everybody see that? Any issues around that?
Looks
cool.
Good.
Perfect. All right, so let me move on here. So again, we're going to cover small business contracting certifications, and we will be sending this presentation out to Megan via PDF format. So don't feel like you have to write down everything today. Just really pay attention and be willing to ask questions if you have them. I'd rather have you stop us in the middle of it. I think that Megan is monitoring the chat today. I think I also have it up. So please feel free to ask us questions as we go, because we do jump around and go through a lot of topics, and some of them are very detailed. So don't be afraid to ask us questions, okay? All right, so this is kind of our basic overview. We're going to go over some general contracting and then go through each of the set-aside programs, starting with 8A, then HUBZone, then service disabled, and then we're going to go over women-owned small business certification in the end. So the SBA sets aside, or the federal government in general sets aside a certain percentage of contracts for each of these set-aside programs. The women-owned is 5, small disadvantaged businesses, which includes the 8A certification, is also 5. And then we go down to HUBZone businesses, which are 3, and then service disabled veteran-owned, which is also 3. And this is how the government really tries to help small businesses. I think last year we achieved over 23% of all federal contracting was awarded to small businesses. So it's a pretty good program to be in, and this is just one of the many benefits that come with being in a set-aside program and being a small business. People always ask Rachel and I the question, should I get involved in federal contracting? Or I'm ready to get involved in federal contracting. And this is where we ask them questions back to see if they're actually ready. And one of them is, have you assessed your business? And the biggest question you want to ask yourself is, does the government buy what you sell? And in most cases, the answer is yes, but it's answering other questions that will really be helpful to you. And those questions are, where does the government buy my product or service? And how can I find that out? And so these are a few websites that you can go and do some research on to find out how the government does buy or sell what you are trying to sell to the government, whether that's a product or whether that's a service. Sometimes, for example, we have construction that is done in the state of Utah, but it's actually procured out of Sacramento, California with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. So it's very helpful to know where those offices are and be aware that if you want to go to some of their in-person events post-COVID, that you may have to travel to those locations to get in front of the decision makers. And so it's a good idea to know where they're buying it from, and then where the work is actually being performed. So very important to do market research on your business. Some general contracting basics when it comes to contracting. So you must know what your NAICS code is. And the NAICS code is how the government organizes what they're buying. There's a lot of them, and every industry will have a NAICS code assigned to it. It's also important to know what your primary NAICS code is and what your secondary NAICS code is. Your primary NAICS code should be where the majority of your revenues come from, and that will determine what your size standard is. And the size standard is based on two things: number of employees, or the average revenues averaged over a 3 or 5 year period. And that will determine whether you're a small business or not. So for example, there's a lot of engineering NAICS codes which start with 541, and a lot of their size standards are $16.5 million. That means that if your business has revenues averaged over a 3 or 5 year period that exceed $16.5 million, you are not considered a small business. And you must be a small business to get into any of these set-aside programs we're talking about today. There are some that are also based on number of employees, and typically those are 500 or more employees that would consider a large business. So just something to be aware of. Something you have to do to work with the federal government is you must be registered in what we call SAM, or right now the website is beta.sam.gov. This is how contracting officers who are actually buying the products or services will be able to go look up your business and make sure that you're certified and make sure that you're not what we call debarred, which means you haven't done anything unethical or something to harm the government. So you have to be registered in SAM to get any contract award through the federal government. You must register for a DUNS number. This is done through a company called Dun & Bradstreet. It is a free process, just like registering SAM is a free process, but you have to have a DUNS number to do business with the government. And just so you're aware, give you a preview, in 2022, this DUNS number will eventually rotate over into a unique government ID. We're still in the process of having that handled. So, and then the last thing is, of course, with anything government, there are a lot of regulations involved, a lot of regulations. And you don't have to be an expert on them, but you should be aware of the basic tenets of the FAR. And then if you're wanting to do with certain agencies, each of them have their own regulations. So the FAR stands for the Federal Acquisition Regulations. So again, you should be aware of them and kind of the basic things that apply to government contracting. And the cool part is we have resources out there that will help you with the FAR and with understanding these things, and it will be free of charge to your small business. So it's really cool. All right, we're going to get into the ADA Business Development Program first. This is the program I manage. And the first thing we're going to talk about is some of the updates that are happening with the program. So recently, we just merged our Mentor Protégé program with the SBA's All Small Mentor Protégé program to make the Mentor Protégé program. Surprise, right? Really, what else would you call it? But we used to have two separate ones, and now we don't. It's all managed at SBA headquarters in Washington, D.C., and the whole point of the program is to help you get involved with another large business that can help you, or it could be a small business as well, to really help you grow and develop. And so sometimes it's best to get that mentorship from somebody who's been there, done that. And this is one of the ways you can do that. Another program is called the joint venture program. There used to be a limit on the number of contracts you could get with a joint venture within a 2-year period, and now they've changed that. You can get as many contracts as you want. And then also, SBA used to have to approve any joint ventures that were going after competitive contracts, and that has since changed, where we do not have to approve joint ventures that are going after an 8A competitive award. In construction, there's this thing what we call a bona fide office, which means you have to have an office in the region where the work is to be performed, if it's for an 8A contract. And they've recently changed that you can now have an office in one state, but be able to bid on contracts that are surround your state or touch the borders of it. They call it a contiguous state. So they've now opened it up so there's more competition and more 8A firms can bid on projects outside of just their state, but the surrounding areas as well.
Hey, Cody, is there a miles on that? Like, for example, down here in our region, we have like Navajo Nation and Ute Mountain that cover a significant amount of area, but are both in multiple states. Is there a miles that covers that?
There is not. It's just pretty much if the regulation states that it must be in a contiguous state serviced by a SBA district office. So in the states that surround Utah, all of them only have one district office. So because of that, we can bid on any projects that touch us, like Colorado, Wyoming, Idaho, Nevada, and Arizona. Any Utah 8A firms that go after an 8A construction contract can now bid on contracts in those surrounding states as well. They also have this thing called a statistical. I can't remember now. Now you've asked me. It's like a metropolitan area. They also have that designation, but I haven't seen anybody really employ that yet. And the weird part is there's nothing from the SBA to give guidance on that. It's all on Wikipedia. So we'll cover it in a little bit later, but I've only seen them expand it now to surrounding states. So anybody in Utah should be able to go after stuff around the state of Utah now as well. Does that answer your question fully?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Good question. All right, so another update is that the personal net worth threshold was raised from $250,000 to $750,000. That's a big change, and the reason why they did that is because they wanted to better align the 8A program with the women-owned small business program. So our expectations and our thresholds are now the same in net worth and in your adjusted gross income. So your adjusted gross income now is $350,000 or less, averaged over 3 years. So this is a great increase. It gives companies more opportunity to join the 8A program. And we'll go into these a little bit later too, because you have to meet a social disadvantage and an economic disadvantage to be eligible for the 8A program. And I'll go into those a little bit more in depth here in a second. All right, so what is the 8A program? You hear all the time, people rumble about it, out in the publics, especially, with like chambers and that kind of thing, and SBCs and PTACs, and they hear this 8A term. What does it mean? And I think the biggest thing here to focus on is that it's an 8A business development program. Sometimes people think that the 8A program is just a contracting program and that you just get handed contracts. And if you have that opinion, I'm here today to tell you that opinion is 100% false. We are not a contracting program. We are a business development program. And the whole point is to help your business grow and to be able to be better able to compete in the full and open market. So that's what we're here for. Build capacity, grow your abilities and your capabilities. And it is a 9-year program, once in a lifetime. So because of that, we want you to be ready when you come in so that you don't waste any of those 9 years trying to build up your capacity and build up your company. So here are some other tenets of the program. Of course, we offer management and technical assistance. Government contracting we've already covered. And the whole goal is number 3 here, to get you have the ability to compete. So that when you graduate from the program after 9 years, you're not so heavily reliant on the 8A program that you go out of business. We would hate for that to happen, and that's not the goal. The goal is to help you get out there and compete more, a little bit better. And we have tools that we can employ to help you become not so reliant on the 8A program. So now you know what the program is. Next, ask yourself, is this appropriate for you? And these are some of the things that you'll be required to participate in and do well in the program. And so these will help you to answer that question. Is the 8A correct for my company? Number one, you will be required to have a commercial and government revenue balance. You cannot just have 8A contracts while you're in the program by the time you graduate. You must be able to market your company. We are not a marketing program, and we do not provide you marketing materials. It is something you must be able to do before you come in, or else you will struggle. You must be able to identify the proper NAICS codes that apply to your business, and you can receive assistance for that through one of our resource partners, which we'll cover a little bit more later, named PTAC, and SBDC. They're one of our major partners. So just like Megan today, they're here to help you in those types of things. So, but PTAC specializes in government contracting. And so when it comes to contracting items, we typically refer to PTAC, but SBDC is always there to help as well. You must meet the net worth requirements, which we already discussed. Do you have fewer in capital and credit opportunities, which applies to your eligibility? And number two, or the last one right here is big, socially and economically disadvantaged. Okay, so socially disadvantaged. You know, people hear that term and it doesn't make a lot of sense, the term itself, but let us define it. So there's two ways you can become socially disadvantaged. Number one, you belong to what we call a pre-designated group. And in number one here, you'll see quite a few bullets. If you belong to one of those groups, you are automatically assumed to be socially disadvantaged. And that checks the box for you on the social disadvantage part of the 8A eligibility. If you do not belong to one of those groups, you can also submit what we call a social disadvantage narrative. And what this does, it explains to the SBA why you feel that you are socially disadvantaged, even though you're not part of one of these groups. It is what we call a preponderance of evidence. So you have to show evidence that this has happened to you. It has to be based on one of those things there: race, ethnicity, gender, physical handicap, or long-term environmental issues. It must be chronic and substantial. So if it happened once, it doesn't qualify. And you must show that it has a negative impact to your business advancement and to your business in general. We encourage people to have quite a few examples. There's no golden number that is like, hey, I've met it, I'm good. But in the past, we've seen people submit anywhere from 10 to 20 examples. If you have 8, I'm not going to tell you not to qualify or not to apply, but it needs to be chronic and substantial, and you need to show that in your narrative. So, and it also has to be out of your control. Something also that's very, very important. Sorry, I'm going to sit down. I was standing, and I'm not going to stand anymore. It must be out of your control. So if you were, not given opportunity to bid on something because you chose not to participate in those meetings, that doesn't apply. It must be something that you didn't have any control over, something important there. Okay, so that is your social disadvantage. Any questions on this slide before we move on? Because this is sometimes a little complicated, and I understand that. So I want to make sure if there's any questions out there, we get them answered.
Right now, there's not any questions that are coming in.
Perfect.
Everything's good feedback so far. They're excited about, they didn't know certain aspects and things like that. So
perfect. Okay, we'll keep going on then. All right, the next one is economically disadvantaged requirements. So we already covered the net worth. It has to be $750,000 or less. Two things to be aware of here. To get to your net worth, we actually subtract out a couple items. Number one is your home equity, and number two is your business equity. So just be advised that those don't count towards your personal net worth, and neither do any of your retirement accounts. Okay, something to be aware of. Again, your adjusted gross income has to be $350,000 or less, and fair market value of all assets is $6 million or less. And these thresholds all changed effective November 16th, 2020. Okay. All right, so this slide is very, very important to be aware of, is that we like to make sure we manage expectations. And something that happens in the 8A program is we do measure your progress. We do like to see how you're growing as a company, whether your revenues are increasing, are your assets increasing, those types of things. Like I said there, it is a business development program. Very, very, very much want to stress that. It's not for everybody. It is very demanding. The annual review can take you many hours to complete every year, and we also require an annual field visit where we go over your business plan and what you're doing as a business to grow and develop. So it is somewhat demanding, but the benefits are also very much worth it if you put in the work to get those contracts. And then the last one is a limited total dollar value of contracts. You can only receive $100 million of 8A direct award contracts. Nobody's really had that problem so far, so I challenge you all to try to make that a problem. All right, and then proactive self-marketing, what we kind of expect you to do, because sometimes people say, well, I'm not the best at marketing, so how do I do that? Number one, you identify, yeah.
On that $1 million, is there a little bit of concern from, is there any exceptions to that rule?
It's 100 million,
Or
not
sorry,
just 1
100
million.
million. Okay. And say, are
No
there
exceptions.
any exceptions to that rule? Okay. Even with the native businesses and things like that?
As far as we know, I'm not aware of any exception to actually with the entity owned firms, the 100 million I think does not apply. It's for a sole proprietorship.
Okay. So the native, like the actual tribal owned businesses, that.
Yeah, I don't think the 100 million applies to tribal owned businesses for typical, for just like a normal, I shouldn't say normal, but a business that's owned by a sole proprietorship or an LLC or, has multiple owners, but anything that's not entity owned, like tribal, Native Hawaiian, or Alaskan Native, there's a lot of rules that don't apply to them or they're different. And so for those type of firms, we have lots of different rules. So like, for example, an 8A direct award can be up to $4.5 million for a personally owned firm, whereas for an entity-owned firm, it's $22 million unless you're dealing with the Department of Defense, and that goes up to $100 million.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a whole different ball game when you're dealing with entity-owned firms. So yeah,
we've
and
got
we've
got a little bit of both on here, and that's why I think that somebody said, "Wait a minute," because we're working on a contract with an entity-owned firm right now that goes against that rule. So that's why I think that came up. So.
Yeah, entity-owned firms definitely have a lot of different rules. So I don't think the $100 million does apply to entity-owned firms, but I'll double check that when Rachel takes over, and I'll put it in the chat and also the CFR reference so that we all can have that in our notes as well. So I'll remember. In fact, I'm going to make a note right now just so I don't forget, and I'll do that when I'm done.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, good question. All right, so again, self-marketing is something you do require you to be able to do on your own. You come into the program. And how do you do that in federal contracting? Because federal contracting marketing is nothing like private sector marketing. It is, private sector, you're trying to tell everybody what you've got, how you can do it, and you try to push it all the time. Well, the government's weird. We like to tell you when we want to hear from you, how we want to hear from you, and how much we want to hear from you. And so when you try to market to, let's say, the Department of Defense, they have vehicles like requests for information or sources sought synopses that are put out when they want you to respond to them. I mean, you're always welcome to schedule a capabilities briefing with, let's say, Hill Air Force Base, Office of Small Business Programs. You're always welcome to reach out and try to get those meetings. But COs, they only want to hear from you when they want to hear from you. So that's why we say it's important to identify which agencies you want to work with, because a lot of them have their own little nuances of how they like to hear from business owners. Know the contracting procedures and who the decision maker is, contracting officer and the program managers. Also focus on your niche, let them know what you're good at. And then we help you to know about small business networking events so that you can really go and build those relationships, because relationship building is how you get federal contracts. Very, very important. All right, so this slide is the most important in my whole slide deck. So please pay attention. Are you ready for the 8A program? If you're not, that's okay, but don't get in until you're ready is my biggest piece of advice of you today, because you only get 9 years. Don't waste your 9 years trying to get ready. Do that before you apply. And then when you get in, let's utilize your 9 years to the best of your ability, okay? Number one, do you have the capacity to deliver on federal contracts? A sole source award for a typical 8A firm is up to $4.5 million. If you've only done $5,000 and $10,000 jobs, you're probably not ready to take on a $4.5 million contract. So let's build your capacity before you get in. Do you have sufficient cash flow? When you get a contract from the federal government, from the time that it's awarded to the time you start performance, there's a whole lot of expenses that come up. Equipment, supplies, employees, maybe a facility if you're working outside of your normal area. All of these expenses are not something that the government gives you money up front to do. You need to have cash flow to cover those types of things and perform on that contract before you can get paid. And some contracts you do get paid along the way. Some contracts you don't get paid till the end. So just be aware of what type of contracts you're getting into. Do you have the capability / past performance? So let me ask you, this is a question I want you just to think about. I'm not going to ask you. If you were in person, I'd ask you this question a little bit more poignantly. But let's imagine you want to build your dream home. You've always wanted this nice farm style home with that farm style sink. You want a hot tub, you want the pool, you want the 3-car garage, whatever you want. Are you going to hire somebody who has built 2 homes or someone that has built 500 homes? And you've got to remember, this is exactly what the government buyer is thinking about when they look at past performance. They want to hire somebody to do that contract who has the ability to perform well. And if you come into federal contracting, you've never had a federal contract and you've maybe done 2 jobs, you're probably not going to get selected because the government has to have guaranteed performance. And so they're going to, when you come in, we want you to have some sort of city experience, some sort of private sector experience, maybe a county job, maybe a state job, maybe even a federal job. And none of these are actually required to come into the program. But those that exceed and do very well in the program are those that come in with some past performance, and they start getting contracts from the get-go. If you come in, you may get a couple small jobs from there, but it's going to take you some time to build up to getting those $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $4 million jobs. And so something that we see a lot of, and this is a problem that we encounter, is we have somebody who's been 30 years experience in the construction arena. Okay, and they've worked for another company. Then they decide to start their own business. They just started it 2 months ago, and they say, I'm ready to join federal contracting. I'm ready to be 8A. I have 30 years experience. No, your business has 2 months of experience. They don't look at the people in the business per se. They look at the business itself. That's how federal contracting works. So they want to look at this business and see what past contracts have been awarded to this business as the prime contractor. If you started 2 months ago, you probably have none. Yes, the people have experience in other companies, but that past performance stays with that company, not with the new company. So that's why we say build up your experience, build up your city jobs, your county jobs, your state jobs, your private sector jobs, and then all of that experience gets tied to your business, and that's how you show you have past performance. Successful past performance, discuss that. And number 5, are you open to advice on growing your business? So, I am a resource for the 8A businesses, and I do give them advice on a pretty constant basis. And you're welcome to take it or leave it, but at least be open to that advice so that I can help you to grow your business. All right, people. All right, now you kind of get the requirements. What are some of the benefits? We've already covered the sole source opportunity. An 8A company can get a direct award up to $4.5 million without any competition, which is a pretty cool thing. A CEO can say, hey, your company can do this. I like your company. I see your past performance. I see you've got some good things under your belt. Let's go to you. And as long as you are eligible and you are meeting the program requirements, they can award you $4.5 or $7.5 million for manufacturing for a direct award contract. Now, you still need to provide them competitive pricing because they have to still determine your price is fair and reasonable. But the cool part is you're not competing with 30 other companies. You're just getting a direct award. So it's pretty neat. Also, you can compete on what we call 8A competitive set-asides. So right now, for example, up at Hill Air Force Base, they're trying to redo their small minor construction contracts. It's called a SABRE. We have all the companies in Utah that do construction bidding on that. They all get to compete and go after it. And they're going to put about 5 to 6 companies on that contract to award task orders to. The cool part is you're only competing with 8A companies. So it's kind of an even competitive landscape. You're not competing with the Geneva Rock You're not competing with Big D Construction. You're competing with your 8A counterparts, which is a better competitive landscape to be in. Number two, joint ventures. We have a small business joint venture program where you are allowed to work with other businesses and go after projects together. The cool part about the joint venture program is that both companies' past performance must be considered when they're looking at who to award to. Very, very cool program. We give you so many opportunities for free training. You may say, well, I get training opportunities all the time. But the cool part is with the 8A program, we have a whole training program specifically geared to 8A companies that is free. You know, you go out and try to hire a CPA to help you with taxes, you're going to pay them a premium rate. But we've got lots of great training opportunities in the 8A program that are completely free to your company. And then your last one is you get me as being your business opportunity specialist. And you know, I'm here to ask questions to match up with partners, to match up with resources, to really help you grow your company. The other programs don't have a dedicated person in their state to help them, and we are unique in the aspect that I am here to help you whenever you need. You can send me an email, a call, and I'm here to help. So it's a pretty cool little part of the program. All right, so you may say, Cody, oh, Cody, sign me up. I want this, I'm ready, Here's the application process. You're gonna go do the DUNS number, like I said, figure out your NAICS codes, and then you're gonna go to register in beta.sam. When all that is done, all that preliminary fun stuff, and let me remind you again, registering in SAM is free. It is free, it is free, it is free. There are so many companies out there trying to dupe you into paying $500 to register for your SAM account. Don't do it. You're a small business, resources are limited. Don't spend money you don't have to spend. It's free, okay? Go there, do it yourself, you got it. The SBDCs or PTAC can also help for free. Oh, so many free things. And then when you're ready, go to certify.SBA.gov and register and apply for the program. Let me give you some warnings. They're going to probably ask you for more information, or you may even be declined your first time around. It's okay. Almost everybody gets declined their first time. What you need to do is pay attention to email and give them the information they're asking for as a follow-up, and do it in the time frame they've asked you to. The SBA just changed larger regulations, and if they deny you, you can't just keep continually reapplying if you get denied. There's a certain time period you have to wait. So please, online at Certified, there's a document checklist. There's a full questionnaire that you can print out and answer all the questions before you apply. Put all those documents in a folder on your desktop. And then when you're ready to apply, you'll have all those documents, answers ready to go. All you have to do is just upload and then copy and paste your answers. So that's a quick and easy process. And then if they ask for more, respond with it in the time allotted and respond with everything they ask for. Like I said, if you get denied, that's okay. Just appeal and submit whatever they need, and just get it done, because it happens all the time. People are denied, and it's not a terrible thing. So don't get discouraged. We see people say, "Oh, I got denied," and I'm like, "It's okay. Just reapply." You know, my last probably see half of the companies that reapply get in, if not more, just because it may just be a missing document, something simple that you can easily rectify. So, and then us here at the Utah District Office, we do not help with applications because we can't see any of the process. Sometimes people like to refer businesses through us if they can't get in, and we have to send that email. We're like, well, we're sorry, we actually have no way of helping you because we can't even, it's all decided at SBA headquarters in DC or in San Francisco. And so we don't have any way to help that process along other than what's already there on the Certify website to help you out. So, and that is it for me. Any questions on 8A before I hand it off to Rachel for HUBZone? Fire away.
I don't currently have any questions coming in for that. I'm not seeing any. I just want to put a plug in for PTAC. They're actually doing the same series in 2 weeks and talking about government contracting. And so we did that on purpose so that you guys learned about the certifications first, and then we bring PTAC in to talk about their role and how they can help you find the contracts and go through that process too. So
yes,
pretty exciting.
I love that. All right, if there's no questions, then I will let Rachel take it away. Rachel, do you want to just take control of the screen and me stop sharing? How do you want to do it?
I'm having a lot of issues with my computer, so it'd probably be best if you kept it on your screen, if that's okay.
Oh yeah, totally. And you just tell me when you're ready for the next slide and I'll just push the next slide.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm ready for the next. All right, so like Cody said, I am over the HUBZone program. A lot of these contracting programs have similar criteria and requirements. We are all a little bit different, but here are some of the updates to the program that happened in 2020. The customer experience was improved. There's faster certifications for people, 60 days from a complete submission. So that's not just the first time that you submit your documentation. Similar to what Cody said, sometimes when people submit an application the first go round, they are missing some documents. And so once the SBA receives a complete application, that's when the 60 days starts. So they are working really hard to make sure they meet that 60-day time frame. We're hoping that the application is a little bit more user-friendly. It hasn't merged over with certify..gov yet. It still is in the general login system, but we're hoping that the portal is continually getting better for the users. And then we're expanding some early engagement. We're doing these types of trainings with our resource partners, with PTAC, so that people know how to navigate the certification process a little bit better. So you're not just out there wondering what to do all the time. Program utilization was improved. Legacy HUBZone employees. So we'll get into this a little bit later. One of the requirements is a 35% employee count living in a HUBZone. Some people say, well, what if I've had this employee for years and years and the HUBZone designation changed and they're not in a HUBZone anymore? You know, do I get rid of this employee? Do I have to find a different employee? That's calling it the legacy employee provision. If you can show through some documentation that that employee was previously in a HUBZone, it was undesignated, and they've been a long-time employee, they're going to count that towards your employee count. We're strengthening the recertification requirements. I think some HUBZone firms probably think this is a hassle, but it really truly is to better the program. You didn't have to recertify yearly. It used to be 3 years. They're having you recertify every year now so that they can keep the integrity of the program and make sure that the firms that are participating really truly are eligible. And we're simplifying contract verification. So before, a firm would have to certify at different times throughout the life of their contract. If a firm is certified and eligible at the time of the award, they will be certified throughout that entire contract. So that's making folks not have to worry so much about that they're meeting all the requirements of the program if they've already received that contract. We are expanding and stabilizing the program. All HUBZone maps right now are frozen through 2021. So anything that is a designated HUBZone right now will be through 2020.
Rachel, I cannot hear you. Is that just me? Or Megan, can you hear Rachel? Okay, no.
No, I think we've lost her. Her internet's kind of gone down.
Let's see if I gotta. Nope. If she doesn't come back in the next minute, I will just take over and continue on. We both have done this many times, so.
It looks like she's dropped off as a participant. She'll probably log back in. But.
Okay. Her internet has been giving her lots of hassles lately, which is not fun. All right, well, we'll just.
We're dependent on it, and then when it doesn't work.
I know. That is okay. Well, I'll continue on then for her. So like Sarita said, they're expanding the predictability of HUBZone designations and really trying to expand the HUBZone availability. The reasoning why is because we've had a struggle hitting our HUBZone goals as a small business, and we don't want to reduce those goals. So we're trying to expand the opportunity so that more firms can participate. So it's kind of a really good program and focus for the SBA. And of course, the whole goal there is to support long-term investment in communities. So, okay, we're going to continue on. So the whole HUBZone program here, the main goals of it is to stimulate capital investment in those rural communities. That's a huge focus for SBA underneath the past and most likely the future administration, as we really want to see that investment in rural areas grow, and to build the capacity of those businesses that do operate in rural areas of, especially Utah and the United States. And then we want to be able to have more businesses have opportunity to really, have access to those dollars. Similar to 8A, you ask yourself the question, is HUBZone good for me? Is it good for my company? It does have the 51% ownership rule of US citizens. Your primary business location must be located in a HUBZone. Very, very important. 35% of your employees must live in a HUBZone. Like we said, you must still meet the size standards, similar to the 8A program. This is the one advantage to HUBZone over 8A is that you don't have to have a minimum time in business. So like I said, the SBA does require a 2-year time in business and having those capacities. The SBA doesn't require that for a HUBZone, which is really, really nice. You can have started your business yesterday and apply for your HUBZone today. You don't have to wait to have those capacities ever build up. It's still a good idea, but it's not required to get that certification. And then, of course, similar to NAICS codes. And then there are certain exceptions for certain groups, which there's a lot of those, which we can cover those more in detail later, but there's not a lot of, so it says, when it talks about different groups, it's talking about tribal governments, Alaska Native corporations, community development corporations, small agriculture cooperatives, and Native Hawaiian organizations have a few exemptions, just like with 8A, there's different rules that apply to those entities. So no worries there.
So there's a couple questions coming in. So one is how do we determine if we live in a HUBZone?
We'll get to that actually, and we'll explain very, very clearly. And I'll show you the HUBZone map that you can, and we'll show you how you figure that out. Good question.
Okay, and then I've gotten 2 questions of, can a startup apply for HUBZone? And you just answered that, is that yes, they can.
Yep.
So.
Yep, you sure can. Very good questions. And we'll cover the HUBZone map here very shortly, so I will not forget that question for sure. Okay, so in the HUBZone program, let's just kind of go over what the SBA's responsibilities are. Our whole job here is, of course, to implement, regulate the program, determine eligibility. Sometimes there do come protests. If, let's say it's a contract is awarded to a HUBZone firm, but somebody feels they are not actually HUBZone certified, another small business could protest that, and we help to resolve those protests. We are currently trying to streamline the certification process, and then we do maintain the listing of HUBZone firms, and that's all maintained on what we call dynamic small business search on the SBA's website. So a CO can always look in a state or an area and find out which firms in that area are certified as a HUBZone business. All right. Something else that the SBA does is that we do site visits on a certain percentage of HUBZone firms every year. And that's all dictated by SBA headquarters. Typically, it's driven by which HUBZone firms get contract awards. And so we'll go out and do unannounced site visits where we'll just show up and make sure your business is actually there, make sure you meet the criteria. We may ask to see a business license. We may ask to see payroll records and addresses of those that are employed by the firm, just to make sure that you're meeting those requirements. And those happen every year. And then, like I said, usually it's about 10 to 15% of the HUBZone firms in the state. And we go out and we drive to those locations and make sure they're there. Right now during COVID, those, I think they're all doing them virtual. Where we have you show us around like on a laptop. It's not the best situation, but it's kind of the improvise while we're getting into this pandemic. So, and then of course you do have, Go ahead.
I just got asked if they have a home-based business. Can they apply for HUBZone?
As long as it is your main business location, it has to be your primary business, and you have to meet certain standards to classify that as your primary business. Like, are you registered in SAM underneath that primary business location? Do you have signage that shows that is your business location? Do you have a business license with that address located? Do you have evidence that you're an actual business? So if we show up, do you have computers? Are you having printers? Are you having employees there? If you're a construction business and you say you perform a large construction and I show up to your home and there's no construction vehicles, I'm going to be asking you questions. Where are these vehicles? How are you performing? And things like that do come up. So we have ways to ensure.
What about a co-working space, since they are becoming more and more, we're getting in the process of opening an RCIC co-working space here. I'm just wondering how that would affect this type of a certification.
So is the co-working space located in the hub zone?
I assume so, but I don't know 100%.
So they'd have to be, of course, located in the hub zone. You'd have to, so when we look at offices, we say regularly maintains an office. So you just can't have a desk in a corner that somebody shows up to whenever they want. Like, it needs to be regularly maintained.
Okay.
So is there somebody there, a full-time employee that sits at that desk from Monday through Friday from 8 to 5? If that is, and there's signage that when people show up, they know how to get you. On the outside, it says your company and suite or room, whatever. When we show up, is there a business license shown and displayed? Like, all those things, you still have to meet the requirements. So we're not going to say no, but I'm not going to say yes, because those bring their own challenges based on the co-working location. You have to be able to be found. If we show up and we can't find you, you will be deemed not a true regularly maintains an office.
That brings up interesting information as we develop in these co-working spaces in those type of areas. If we're going to have businesses to qualify for this, as designers, we need to make sure that we are putting that type of thought process in to these spaces and making sure that that's available if we want to add these certifications and make them a priority as well.
Exactly. And COVID's a little different. Of course, we understand not everybody can be in the same space right now, but your primary location is where the majority of your employees are working. So, if let's say you have an IT company, but half of your employees or more than half your employees actually work in another state, technically this isn't your headquarters. Like, the majority of your employees are elsewhere. So, and they may or may not be living in a hub zone. So co-working spaces come with their own challenges, but every office must be appropriate to the type of work that it performs. So just keep that in mind, because if you show up and you tell me you're general construction and I see no evidence of a construction business, I'm going to start asking questions. But if let's say you're a graphic design company of 2 and both of you work there and you both maintain it, that's probably going to be okay, as long as there's signage, we can find the business, those types of things. So good question.
There's one more question coming in that kind of falls in that same category that you just talked about. It says, I am an owner and only employee. However, I don't take a paycheck. Can I apply for a HUBZone certification?
Where's the primary location of the office? Is it located in a hub zone?
I would assume so, because I don't know where the HUBZone is. It's in San Juan County, but they're in San Juan County. But I don't know because I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure we qualify, but I haven't seen the boundaries.
I'm pretty sure you do as well. Just because you don't pay a paycheck doesn't mean you're not an employee. Like, the owner still counts as an employee. So we would have to see, you still have to meet both standards, right? The primary location is in a hub zone, and 35% of employees live in a hub zone. So if you're the owner and your business primary location is a hub zone, but you don't live in a hub zone, you wouldn't meet. But because of the location of where I'm assuming this business is and where the owner lives, I would say most likely you would qualify. Yeah, good question though. And then you do have to recertify HUBZone every year, is what we're doing. So they're changing most things to be every year because there's been a lot of fraud that the SBA has uncovered, and we're trying to prevent fraud, not just because we want to be the bad cop, but we want to protect legitimate HUBZone businesses from staying and competing with businesses like them and not these imposters. So that's the whole goal. All right, so how do you get the most out of your HUBZone certification? Of course, you qualify for set-aside and social contract opportunities, which increases your ability as a business to get more revenue. You can still participate in the SBA's Mentor Protégé program, and you can create HUBZone joint ventures as well. They are not approved by the SBA, but you can still create those if you'd like to. And then if you're a HUBZone certified firm, you still have access to training, management and technical assistance, and other opportunities within the SBA as well. Currently, the HUBZone application is still on our old system called the General Login System, or GLS. And so you will have to apply for the program on there. Of course, it's a similar thing. You gather necessary documents, you'll go to GLS and apply on that system. You have to submit your documentation within 10 business days. And HUBZone is also one of those programs that if you get a request for more documentation, please be responsive and timely so that your application doesn't get denied or kicked out of the system. Okay, so now we're going to answer that question that you had about how do I know if I'm in HUBZone? So this is a website you'll go to, SBA.gov/HUBZone, and this is the map that you can see. And this will tell you whether your business or your home address or any address really is located within a HUBZone. And there's 3 ways to qualify. If you are in a census tract, or if you are in a county that's designated HUBZone, or Indian land. There's 3 different ways to qualify as a HUBZone. So this is the Indian land that we have that is already determined as a HUBZone in the state of Utah. These are counties which are determined to be HUBZone counties, which I think yours is in there, right? You're Juab, is that what you said?
We're San Juan, so our whole county is covered in that. And
Oh,
then we
perfect.
have some Indian HUBZone as well as part of that.
Perfect. Then you're good to go there. And then these are the census tracts. Census tracts do change every, what is it, 10 years or 4 years? I can't remember. But these are, I think it's every 4 years, but these do change from time to time. There are ways for like the governor of Utah to petition to have these changed and expanded. So there are other ways we can get these to grow, but these are the ones right now. So, and then this is all of them overlapped. So, but you will go to this website, like I said, and you can actually enter in any address. You don't have to like search, zoom in through county or whatever. You can just type in your address and it will come up on the right with a check mark or an X that will tell you whether you're in a designated HUBZone or not. It's very simple. Any questions on that? Okay, perfect. I want to see if Rachel's sent me a text at all to see if she's, oh, she said her internet's just not being helpful. Okay, perfect. Well, we are going to move on from HUBZone then and cover service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses. Again, this is another set-aside program to really build capacity and grow for businesses that are owned by a service-disabled veteran-owned small business. You can also establish joint ventures just like the other programs, and there are set-asides for this as well. Again, the question for you is this certification actually appropriate for you? It must be 51% owned and controlled by a service-disabled vet. And that individual has to hold the highest officer position in the company as a CEO. Of course, the proper NAICS codes apply again. They want to see that you've had managerial experience. Many people who have served in the military, though, do have that leadership and managerial experience, so that does help there. And the person has to manage the day-to-day operations of the business. And why that is important is that sometimes we see people who, you know, they have a service-disabled veteran-owned or a veteran that works in their business, but they're not any of these positions, or they don't manage day-to-day, and they think they can qualify, but that's not the case. They must hold the highest officer position and meet all these other requirements. Very, very important. Again, there's the set-aside programs and sole source award contracts that can happen for SDVOSB businesses. You can create joint ventures that also apply to these types of businesses. And the difference between this program and the other set-asides is that you must go to vetbiz.gov to apply to get certified as being a service-disabled veteran-owned individual. And the SBA does not handle that right now. It's something that is all done through the VA. And then what happens is you get that certification from them, and then you can apply for the actual program. So we're going to skip these slides because they've completely changed it. Actually, I'm going to give one quick plug here for the Mentor Protege program. It was called the All Small, but it's now just called the SBA's Mentor Protege program. Any business can apply to become part of the Mentor Protege program. And you can put together an agreement with you and your mentor in areas that you need assistance on. This can be areas of marketing. It can be in the areas of accounting, the areas of general business management. It can be on contracting itself in specific areas. When I see people who do these agreements, sometimes when they make the agreement, they fail to create very good goals and things that are not very specific. And now that this is managed from headquarters, they're being very particular on who they're approving for this program. So if you want to, let's say, let's say you're getting contracting help, when you set the goals in your agreement, just be very clear of who you want to give the assistance, how many times you want them to give the assistance, is it recurring, and in what areas. So we see things like, I would like to get contracting help from my mentor. And people are like, well, how do you know if you've met that goal? Because every year you have to give a program update of how you're doing. Are you meeting your goals? Is the mentor actually helping you? And so it's hard to measure that type of goal. But if you were to say, I would like, our goal is to receive contract bidding assistance from my mentor's bid team for 6 sessions throughout the year for a minimum of 90 minutes each. You can then go back and look at that goal and say, here's the 6 dates, here's the team that was there, here's my team that was there, we met from this time to this time, and we met that goal because we actually did all of those things that we could quantify to make sure we were getting the assistance that we needed. So when you're doing your Mentor Protege agreement, which is open to all small businesses, just make sure those goals are specific so that you're getting what you want out of that relationship, okay? I'll skip over that. All right, and that is it for the first 3 set-aside programs. Is there any questions on those before we go on to women-owned? We're a little ahead of schedule, so that's a good thing, I guess.
I don't have any questions coming in right now.
Okay, Melinda, I think you have made it into the meeting. We did a brief introduction before we started. Do you want to give us an introduction? Oh, I didn't even have my video on this whole time I did HUBZone.
Sure.
I am so sorry. I thought I had it
your
on.
Wonderful face, your beautiful face.
I had it on for 8A, and then I turned over to Rachel, and then her computer decided to give up the ghost. So
Yeah, I'll turn it on quick for me, and then I'll just go off for when we do the presentation. But yeah, I'm pleased to be here. Linda Workman with the U.S. Small Business Administration, and oversee the women's programs, District International Trade a little bit, dabble on that, but I oversee kind of the women's business centers, make sure that they have compliance with the grant, and also, just do our economic development and marketing and outreach to our wonderful SBA programs that we have available with your taxpayer dollars at work. So pleased to be here. We'll just talk about real quickly the women-owned small business contracting program, and it has probably undergone a lot of wonderful changes. The best that's happening here is that everything is kind of being integrated into beta certify SBA.gov, and it's a free online certification process, and that's housing now the women-owned small business and the economic disadvantaged women-owned small business programs. And as of October the 15th of 2020, the previous self-certification option that we had prior to that in Certify is no longer available. and there's no grandfathering into the program, the firms must take action that we're in that and apply through beta certify SBA.gov. All of your documentations that were uploaded are available to be, for retrieval up until the end of this month. So that's coming quickly in a couple weeks. So if they, there and you want to get those, retrieved, do that as soon as possible. And the other big change here is that now instead of SBA approved third-party certifiers, which we had all along, still had to certify every year if they were doing that for a company. Now it's gone to every 3 years if you use a third party certifier, but if otherwise you will be doing it specifically for yourself. You'll be certifying every year. And SBA will now be taking the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs certification along with the 8A. We've always done the AA, so I did put that on there, but in addition to that, now that is available. So next slide. Thank you. And Cody probably went over this on the 8A, the different percentages that the government has put out there for target goals. Women owned is 5%. In that mix, along with small disadvantage 8A 5 and the hub zones and all over small business 23%. So that's kind of maybe be a redundant slide there, but highlights, we just have the 2019 information probably because of COVID and everything, but just awards that were made. There was over 72,000 in 2019 of small business prime contractors received an average of $1.8 million in awards. So that's good. And 26.5% of all small business that were eligible daughters were awarded to small firms. So those are great accomplishments that we had in 2019, and I'm sure we've hopefully done as well in 2020 when that information was available. Next slide. And this is probably a little redundant too, just in the prime contracts of 2019 is kind of information that we have out there, but the target there is prime contracts awarded to 15,000 WOSB prime contractors, which that's 21% of all small business vendors. So that was a huge accomplishment. It's been increasing and over the years since the program was incepted. It was the inception of the program back in 2011. So that's good news there. So yeah, and next slide, Cody. Thank you. So the WOSB and the Economic Disadvantaged WOSB program is encompassing together of two different programs. If you they have different next codes, and we'll have available in this slide. Also, we'll have the links to be able to go into those and make sure that your classification code is there and specific to those specific programs. So economic disadvantage, we'll get into that as we go into a few further slides, has the financial requirement involved in being able to be certified as an economic disadvantaged business. Okay. Next slide, Cody. Once again, certification improvements. So we just talked about those briefly. SBA was assigned through Congress for the oversight of the program, and back in 2015, the National Defense Authorization Act said that we had to have certification and oversight of this program, and so Beta Certify is basically what has come long in coming, but it looks like it will be well worth the wait. And and if you need the regulations or any of that, that will also be in this link to the slide for the Federal Register for back when these changes all took effect back in May 2020. So there's that information available to you for that. And let's see, and once again, next slide, Cody. And those improvements, you'll want to make sure that we are making those changes. That's the biggest thing everybody needs to know, is that you're not grandfathered in from the previous program. You must apply and go through the process in beta certify.SBA.gov in order to be eligible for applying for contracts and so forth. It is not going to happen by itself. That you'll have to take that action in order to do that. And next slide talks a little bit about the self-certified firms. In case you don't want to use a third-party certifier, you can go through this process. They have made it as simplified and as possible. We've got checklists, we've got videos, we've got an online help button, everything to help you along through that process. They've hired staff. The biggest thing that we've heard directly from headquarters is that they've hired staff to actually monitor this program so that it's not, weeks and weeks to wait for assistance. You hit the help button, fill out a form, and someone will get back with you right away, because staff is available directly to help you with questions and being able to get your certification done through beta certify.gov. Next slide. Here is a list of our third-party certification companies. They must be done through SBA. This has not changed. These 4 third-party certification companies or organizations have been the same since 2011. So they're the organizations you can go through to help you do that if you choose to do that. And like I mentioned previously, that certification, if you go through one of those, will be done every 3 years in this in the new certification. If you do it individually, you will need to re-up and recertify every year for this. And there's some links to the different organizations there that will tell you what they offer and what's available to help you if you decide to choose a third-party certification. And next slide, please. Other certifications, like I mentioned before, you can use your 8A development certification. You have to upload those certifications, though, into beta certify in order to use those. And so those are also part of the change. So that's also an advantage there. So resources, next slide, please, Cody. The resources that we have available, the website is kept, WOSB Ready website is kept updated continually for any ongoing changes. We do have help through our resource partners, our PTAC, others to help. But like I mentioned, the greatest probably thing about this program is that they have actually hired staff to help. And like I said, the online assistance available to help you. They listed the frequently asked questions, anything that's come up since the inception of the program. And so there's lots of help out there for you and available to you. Next slide. There's partnerships and things that have been in place to get the word out about what all these changes will be. The SBA has partnered with the Women Impacting Public Policy. They're known as WIP. American Express initiatives like Challenge Her, boosting the contracts as they're entering the 7th year and getting as many women educated as possible across the country to know this is available and that they're ready to help you and get your business certified and ready to go after some government contracts. Next, Cody, or I'll probably skip to. We'll go right into it, just a couple slides on briefly on the certification part. Is it right for you? Basically, along with what Cody and Rachel had talked about previously, a lot of the same requirements. Your managerial experience, 51% ownership. The management of your day-to-day operations, and with this program, it's always been that there's been no minimum time in business. You can have started your business yesterday, and go in and certify and get going the next day. But you want to be, as like Cody mentioned, prepared as much as possible up front to be successful. You want to have the highest officer position, and that means that, like I said, in the management of the day-to-day operations, you're the person that's making those decisions for your business, and you have to be part of the NAICS codes that are authorized for the women-owned small business and economic disadvantaged small business program. You must meet those, that industry code, or your business wouldn't be eligible for it. So, and let's see, and we also will have later on the like I said, the link to check and your industry codes if you're interested to see if your business actually qualifies in that. Next slide, please. Economic disadvantage, like I mentioned, does have the requirement, the financial requirement attached to it. It's the requirements here is that your personal net worth is it will be, of course, minus your liabilities, less than $750,000, and your 3-year average income is $350,000 or less. And your fair market value of all your assets is $6 million or less. And of course, do take out retirement accounts out of the mix there. And SBA only looks at the spouse's role if they've lent money to, or they provide financial support, guaranteeing loans or anything like that. Otherwise, it's not included in that decision-making process. Next slide, probably to jump to the next. Thank you. You must register in SAM and then visit the beta.certify.SBA.gov. Boy, that's a lot of dots in there when you get going, isn't it? And for all the helps, like I mentioned along the way, the videos, the checklist, am I eligible, am I ready, as many things up front, and the documents that you need to be prepared before you actually get into the system. But they've spent a lot of time and effort into making sure that this is free and simplified and a advantageous program to help certify everyone. So next slide, please. This is just a little screenshot of what the homepage looks like. Like I said, it has access to your checklist, and it helps you verify your eligibility up front before you can get into the program, which is good. Questions that you might have, submitting your help form, like I mentioned, and like I said, the videos and training guides and all of those that are available for everything up front. Next slide, please. And just another quick screenshot of what it kind of looks like when you get in there. How do I, find, what the criteria is, the interactive links. So you're talking to somebody, or at least connected along the way. So that's very helpful. Next slide, please. And then, of course, to prepare. Like I said, the checklist is very important. The eligibility requirements, everything up front, all of your information up front, and documentations before you begin, what you will need when you get in there to upload into the database and to prove, all this for all the documentations for your company and to be certified. Next slide, another screenshot, just kind of gives you an idea of what you're looking at. Steps, you'll have to have your DUNS number. So you'll need that. You need to register in SAM. So you'll need to have an active SAM account available and create that before you actually get started, and make sure that if you've had one, that it's active and working before you get into the process. So next slide, please. And here is a slide that just talks about the 3 steps: issuing the decision on the certification, how that happens. You'll notice the caveat in the bottom: the SBA representative will reach out for any information if you find out that you need some, help or assistance along the way. Your application is submitted and it shows a pending status when you go through the process. And step 2 is that SBA will let you know if it's complete and sufficient within 15 days. Then that's where the caveat is, if you need additional information, they'll reach out to you before that, which is pretty good. It won't be sitting there for forever. So that's good news for everyone, as sometimes it felt like before things were falling into the black hole. So it's great that they do have staff to manage the program. And then step 3, they'll make a determination 90 days after the receipt of your complete application is in place. And then you'll hear back and you'll know if you are declined. There is a waiting period before you can actually apply again. If you get things that are that come up that make you ineligible, you'll have a time period where you will also be able to correct those, but then you'll have to wait for that time period before you can submit an application again. So it may take a little longer for that process. Next slide, please. And then to complete your successful application, again, all of the helps up front, help with getting your DUNS number, your account in SAM active, and make sure that you've got all your documentation ready to go before you actually start getting in for the application process and uploading your documentation. So next slide, please. I think this is just a continuation of some other things that to help you have the continue success in an application. In case that you find you need additional assistance, there's also a user guide that there's a live link in this PowerPoint, so that will take you to that, which helps answer some questions too ahead of time if you run into that. And then next slide, please, or 2 slides, I guess, Cody. And of course, then once you're ready to go and you're approved and ready to go after those contracts, and then you'll like I said, you'll want to be doing all that you can for your business development, be ready to go when it's time to start going after those successful contracts. And then whether or not, of course, you've decided to apply under the WOSB, or if you have the financial requirement met for the economic disadvantaged, to give you the additional industry codes that you can actually be qualified under for too. And next slide, please. Again, and then just the reminders of like we've said before previously, you'll want to identify your potential buyers and contracts, and get to know those agencies that are looking for your programs and your services and your products. focus really on, of course, what you've put in there as your industry code and your niche, and prioritize how you want to be successful and get there. Use every opportunity to network and get to know your contracting officers for events that we have, every year, matchmaking events and agency events where you get to know what's available and what's out there, and they have a face with your company's name, and they get to know you, and those are, invaluable things to keep in mind, so it makes the difference of you being successful, and recognizing.
Hey, Melinda.
Yeah.
What? Sorry, I think I'm on the wrong slide. Which slide are you on right now? I want to make sure I'm on the right
sorry.
one.
Did I not say? No, I probably, let's see. It's the proactive self-marketing. It's got the little 2 more, I think. 1 more. Go 1 more. I forgot. Oh, 1 more.
Okay.
Yep. Sorry, I forgot to go. Yep. I knew I'd forget to say next slide, please.
That's okay. I just want to make sure I was on the right spot, so I apologize. Take it away.
That's what happens when I'm looking, thinking it's moving, and it's not, because you're in control. And sorry about that. Yeah, well, a little bit of excitement this afternoon to make sure you're all awake. Thank you. So this is just very important. Just little tidbits to always keep in mind. Just as like we've all mentioned, the marketing of your business is very valuable and most important for you being successful. And next slide. So it just talks about, of course, getting the most out of this program. We've got set aside and sole source contracts that are being, put out there. It's increasing every year. There are the 442 industry codes that are set aside for that. There's 364 for the WOSB, and economic disadvantaged has another 80. So you've got 444 industry codes that are eligible for these set aside and sole source contracts. So definitely worth pursuing as a woman-owned small business. Like I said, lots of opportunities for you to help, helps out there for you to be successful through, our resource partners, our PTAC organizations, and so forth, for you to be successful. And then I think, I think we got probably another slide that just has the link to the application, couple slides, Cody. And then it just has that application user guide. Those are most likely what, to leave this in is to help you, because it's got the live links to take you to those helps, the user guide and so forth. And then, of course, the next slide has our list of our resources out there available to help you. All, like I said, across the country. There's the answer desk, but we have local help here. Got, like I said, PTAC, us, but our resource partners are invaluable to get your business ready to, be successful for these contracts, and very valuable resources for you. And I think the next one just has a contact information, Cody, for WOSB ready information. That next slide for contact us, and it has links to go directly to the WOSB ready website for the help for the beta certify process. And then I think the last one is our district office. Next slide is our district office contact information, and then our questions. So
I've got a couple of questions that came in while you were talking.
Okay.
The first is, one of them is more of a comment that I kind of, if we never plan to contract, is it worth them going after any of these certifications?
I'll jump in real quick here. I think for most of them, no. it is not worth it to go after these certifications, because the whole point in these is to get federal set-aside contracts. The only, let me go off my video or turn on my video a second. The only reason that it would make sense to go after these if you wanted to get the business development assistance from the 8A program. But it's a lot of work to get into the program, and it's a lot of work to maintain your certifications. So I would say no is a general rule, but the only one that I can see that would make sense is if you wanted to just do the development side of the 8A program, but you're spending a lot of time just to get that business development help. You might be more or better served by just working with SBDC, PTAC, and maybe getting your MBA, to be honest, because this is a lot of compliance work to not get the financial reward, in my opinion.
I agree. I went after my women-owned business, and my partner has her minority business, and it's a lot of work. It is, but it's worth it if you're going to contract. It is by far worth it. We ran our business off of federal contracts, and it's amazing that way. But we maintained, and it took a lot of work to do that. Another question is how do you become a third party approver on the women-owned business side? Is there a process to that? I think that was a chamber president that asked that, or one of our chamber presidents. We have several down here.
Yeah, SBA has to authorize that, and they have not opened that back up since 2011. So
Okay.
that will be done through, through SBA, and I haven't. I don't know about Cody. I haven't heard any rumblings about that changing anytime, soon. So.
Nope.
There wasn't one in Utah or in this general region, and so they thought that would be something that would be neat if we had something like that going on. So that is all the questions that we have. Most of them were asked that came up were asked as we went through the presentations. So there's no point going over those again. Unless there's anything else that you guys would like to go over or add on to the end of this, I think that we have covered these really, really well, and I really appreciate you guys taking the time out to go over these. It's really appreciated, and we have several businesses that really qualify into either the A8, the women-owned, and even the HUBZone. So it's really exciting.
The idea that I'll just add one thing. We don't have any 8A certified businesses down in southeastern Utah. So, we want to grow the portfolio. We want to have some representation down there, just because there are projects that happen in southeast Utah, especially with the Forest Service and National Park Service. The Colorado market is pretty close. So, we would love to see some 8A firms down in that area. And so please work with your PTACs, please work with the SBDC, please apply for the program. Like I said, we don't walk you through that process. We are actually doing a train the trainer event coming up where we're going to walk, kind of go over all of the programs with the actual resource counselors. And so they have this information as well. And honestly, a while ago, the 8A process and these applications were a lot harder to get. They really were, because it required a lot of paperwork and submitting a package and mailing this big old binder, this big of paper, and that doesn't happen anymore. And so all you have to do is put together these electronic documents, answer some questions, and apply online. And so, we also don't provide you a lot of hand-holding through this experience. And let me tell you why. It's not because we don't love you, because we love you so much. Like, that's not it at all. The reasoning why is because if you struggle to do an application and upload documents and answer questions via an online portal, you are going to struggle in federal contracting. And so this is kind of how we weed out the businesses that are not ready to take on federal contracting. You have to be able to ride the bike without the training wheels. And the federal government doesn't give you a bike with training wheels. No, they give you the full-on mountain bike and expect you to be able to ride it. So this is why we really hope that businesses that get through the process do it and are able to do it, because when you get a contract, you have to submit payroll reports, you have to submit invoices, you have to submit for payments, and all that is done on an electronic portal. And so if you can't get the AD application done without too much help, I mean, sometimes the system's dumb, I get it. But if you can't do it in general on your own, you are not ready for federal contracting. And that's just the blunt point of the day. Hopefully that makes sense.
Nope, it totally makes sense. And I appreciate you bringing that up because I think that that's important for people to understand why in many situations we don't hold hands. We answer questions. We will help you on a broad scale with those situations, but that's an important aspect. In order to be successful in that certification or in that area, you need to be able to do that on your own, or you're not going to be successful. And we don't want to set you up for failure as well.
Exactly. I fully agree. And the good part is there's tons of resources out there. The help page has a full video walkthrough of the whole application. There's a document checklist, and there is also a full questionnaire that you can view before you even apply. So the resources are out there. Just take advantage of those. If the system is being done, that's one thing, but you really need to take it upon yourself to use those resources and apply, because once you get in, it's going to be a lot of hard work. And so this is the way we weed you out of who's already. But hey, Rachel's back. Rachel, anything you want to add?
Okay, there it worked. So I'm so sorry that my computer kicked me off. I'm glad my contact information is on this slide so people can get a hold of me. One thing I did want to talk about with the HUBZone program is once you start, you must complete it. You can't go back. So just be prepared, utilize those document checklists on SBA.gov/HUBZone. There's different ones for C Corp, LLC, different business structures have different document requirements. So please just get that knowledge and everything ready with that first application submission, because you can't save it and go back. And then please watch your emails. They will reach out to you via email if they need some more supporting documentation, and you have a 10-day window to submit that. And if you don't, there's a waiting period. I think it's 6 months. You have to wait a long time before you can reapply for that program. So just be ready.
Also check your spam mail, something that we've noticed, especially with PPP and things like that. Like the SBA emails actually go to spam mail, and so you will miss it if you're not checking that as well. So just be heads up. So anything else anybody wants to add before we close out for the day? Wonderful. Well, again, I really appreciate you guys taking the time. I know you guys' schedule is so busy, especially during this time with everything going on. So we really appreciate all three of you guys taking the time and scheduling this in and explaining this. As I mentioned earlier, in 2 weeks, we have Jack from PTech coming on, and he's going to explain the whole process in government contracts and how to take this information and add that into the government contracts in his role at PTech, and how he can help you get those government contracts, work the contracts, and then create your bids so that you are able to get those federal funds to start working on your business development and your growth in this coming year and into 2022. So we appreciate you joining us. If you're watching the replay on any of the channels, feel free to leave your questions and your comments. I check those every single day. If I don't know the answer, I will reach out to the SBA and get those answers for you and make sure that we get the information that you need. You guys have a wonderful day. Thank you for your time, and we will catch you next time. Bye-bye.